Hello people and welcome back to News Review. It's good to be back. The main content of this week's news is the introduction of a new collab with That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, which I'll be referring to as the Slime Isekai from this point onwards because the full title is too long. As is the case with new collabs nowadays, the patch notes are very long as a short novel, so I'll be trying my best to condense all the information in here. If you are a new or returning player, I do recommend you check out my new player guide. It'll help you better understand what I'm saying in the video. As always, open up the patch notes, link in the description if you want to follow along. Additionally, I'm trying out a new thing where I buy guild stage for every 10 subscribers I hit, which will give you a diamond if it's your first time clearing it. Thank you so much for 490 subscribers, so the next milestone will be at 500 subscribers. So subscribe and also join the guild, as well as the Discord, both codes in the description if you want to participate and be notified of that. With all that out of the way, let's jump right into it. The collab seal will have 8 characters, with Rimuru being the main jackpot and Benimaru and Shion being sub-jackpots, a very classical seal format with the classical amount of characters in it. It has also already been revealed that Rimuru will have an SR form available later in the collab period, which just means that you might want 2 copies of him around, and that means more money for Madhead. Starting out, we have a team skill for Tempest members, where their stats get a 1.5 times boost when there are 3 or more Tempest members in a team. Starting off with the actual cards, we have the main jackpot Rimuru, a water elf. As a leader, he seems to have a decent set of team skills. He doesn't really ignore a crazy amount of stuff, but all the standard stuff is there. Everything I show here is unique stuff. But that's a good thing that he doesn't just ignore all the shields in the game. For members, he incentivizes collab members by giving them an additional ×2 stat boost, but there is no hard limit on his team skill, which is quite rare for collab leaders. A lot of the skills remind me of what rainbow leaders have, which is good because it allows him some more flexibility. Of note is that I don't believe his shield comes with the over-blocking functionality, so that's a slight bummer. If he had that, I think it would improve his survivability quite a bit. He also has a draconic ability, which normally isn't that big of a deal, but this is one of the few abilities that does not consume a charge of your craft, meaning that you can activate it as much as you can within a stage. It does still consume 100% of your draconic power though, so you do need to have that to activate it. The abilities in here are decent. You can choose the ability that suits the current situation, but this also means that he suffers more if your draconic gets smashed in, because then you lose quite a significant part of his kit. For its active skills, the first one kind of sucks since you normally want to explode the full board instead of just half of it, but the second active is pretty powerful since it removes 2 annoying board effects of tornado and enclosed areas, and there are still very few cards that can remove enclosed areas in the game. I'm just going to jump straight to the active skills of Rimuru's humanoid form since there aren't big changes to leader and team skills besides some increases of multipliers. In this form, he switches to using EP, where he has a max EP of 100, and he can innately recover up to 10 EP per round by dissolving water and heart, where each runestone counts for 1 point. The first active got a couple of improvements, where exploding got upgraded to removing, and Tempest members also ignore combo nullifying and combo seal now. As for the second skill, you have this. Just wanted to show you what I'm working with here. If you appreciate the work I'm putting in, please subscribe and stick around. For his second active, you effectively convert the whole board into one type of your choosing depending on your members, and also ignore some more niche shields like equal combo and percentage damage reducing resistance. Furthermore, the skill also has an after attack effect which can be used to bypass tumblers and also multi HP bars, but not enemies in the complete next wave, like Gabimaru from Hell's Paradise. Rimuru also has another playstyle, which is Annexation. In the Annexation form, his leader and team skills remain mostly the same, with the 2 big differences being that his shield is now 180k instead of 150k, and that he deducts the attack of all members and adds it to himself. Beyond that, there is the actual Annexation itself, which means that he absorbs the member to the right and gains their stats, Dragonware ability, and race. This can be done when the member is a non-collab character, Veldora or Shizu. The first active is a variation of the OG one, where you can choose 6 runestones instead to remove the whole board, but everything else is the same. For the second active, it is quite good since it is a fixed board and ignores a lot of stuff that isn't already ignored. The sky jump might take some time, meaning that, you know, it's less good for speedrunning stages and farming, but is overall a pretty good and useful skill. After that, we have Benimaru, a fire demon sub-jackpot. As a leader, he is attempting to be a speedrun leader since he converts the board into 2 types at the end of each round. But since this conversion isn't fixed, it's just not very good in my opinion. As a member, the only thing that isn't already ignored by Rimuru is initial shield, so the only use I see for him in Rimuru's team is for CD cycling, which is mildly useful. Generally, this is also not that good of a active skill, I don't think. Again, the direct damage kind of feeds into the thing that I was talking about where he's trying to be a speedrun leader, but I don't think it's very successful. And the only thing that is kind of good here is probably the CD cycling. And maybe Eclipse, but Eclipse Shield still is not a thing, so until that actually becomes a thing, this card is not useful. For our last jackpot, we have the Dark Demon Xion. This card as a leader seems to consolidate damage on leader and ally and is probably a more usable leader, although still quite a bit worse than Rimuru, but you know, that's par for the course as the jackpot and sub-jackpot. As a member, this is more like it for a sub-jackpot's active skill. There are a ton of useful effects here that are new, like lowering your recovery to 0, ignore elemental shields, and it also comes with inbuilt CD cycling. And with Rimuru's CD cycling in his team skill, you could potentially activate this every single round because, you know, you get -3 on this skill and -1 on Rimuru's team skill, and then 1 from just passing a round normally, and then, you know, you're back to 5, right? So that's quite good. She also has a second active, which is not very impactful, but a good add-on to the card overall, and this does enable one of her leader skill conditions. It's basically free to allow her to ignore cross-shaped shields. Moving on to the small prizes, we have the Water Demon Soe. This is the token collab card that restores cracked and unlocked members. Solid card, nothing more to say. For a small prize, it's pretty decent. Next is Hakuro, also a water demon. This is a decent card that also has a fixed board specifically for runestone stacking. And apart from that, ignoring disguised runestones is decent as well. Next is the Earth Elf Gobta. This is not a very good card. Clearing black and white zone is nearly useless. Ignoring black holes is also nearly useless unless somehow the whole board is black holes, or there are just like a ton of them. Next is the Dark Beast Ranga, who is the first ever beast to intimidate the enemy, useful in niche situations such as the enemy like taking 10% damage unless you intimidate them, which is a shield I believe that exists right now. And the last small prize is the Water Dragon Gabiru, who has one of the more creative actives I've seen in recent times. There you can choose the columns to explode after a full board heart conversion. This can solve a lot of different shields, such as Identical Group Shield, where you have to dissolve 5 or 6. Actually, it's mostly just 5 groups of the same type, where heart can count as any type, or 15-15. Where you have 15 heart and 15 water. I don't think I've seen that combination before, but it could come up. Or even just generate large amounts of heart. If you just tap the same column 3 times, you end up with 25 heart and 5 water, so that's another thing you can do. As usual, there are dragon rares for each card in the seal. I'll not be going over every single one of these for the sake of time. I will just say that Rimuru's one is at least usable, since one of its craft skills delays the CDs of all enemies by 1. If you thought we were done with seal cards, you thought wrong. The Fire Human Shizu can be obtained upon throwing 35 times and is also in a gift pack that costs real money. This is separate from the jackpot guarantee, and you don't need to exchange anything for this card. Cough cough, Hell's Paradise. This is just an add-on. If you draw 35 times, you get this card for free. As a leader, she's decent. She has absolutely no restrictions on members, which is very surprising. There is a bias for fire members and humans, but that member pool is wide enough to cover a lot, and the team skills focus on CD cycling and killing enemies immediately. Moving on to her active, she is the first ever fire human to ignore death damage, and in fact, the only humans to ignore death damage thus far have all been light. Other than that, having controlled skyjump as well as damage inheritance are good and unique skills that will likely see use. This card also has her own Dragonware that comes with its own challenge stage, or you can get a random mode of it upon clearing the stage. And if you thought we were done with seal cards again, you're wrong again. The last card that has to do with the seal is the Earth Dragon Veldora, who can be obtained by collecting all the collab cards or by purchasing a gift pack with real money. Let's take a moment here to make fun of Madhead for not proofreading their graphics. As you can see, this is Veldora the Strom Dragon. Let's move on. What's special about Veldora is that he is the card with the most words in his card skills by far, taking up 4 whole pages just for this active. This is pretty ridiculous. With that useless fact out of the way, please subscribe and stick around if you're enjoying this. It's not easy reading through large amounts of word slop and condensing it. Okay, let's get to the actual card skills. As a leader, he's decent. Everything in his skills is pretty standard, but the conversion to Earth every round might be a hindrance more than a helpful thing, since you can't control it. Okay, as you saw, his active skills are absolutely insane in terms of word count, so I will be leaving out a lot of stuff that I don't find significant here. His first active is another unlocking one, but the special thing about this is Binary Break, where you can add 3 rows of runestones above the normal board, being the second ever dragon to do so since the Black Gold Karū. His second active is just a switch one and mainly comes with a full heal. It is conditional as well, but the condition is pretty lenient, being 30 or more earth or race runestones dissolved. Doesn't have to even be first batch, so this is very easy to do, especially if he is a leader. In his humanoid form, his first active is kind of similar but gains extra attacks, both in the direct damage department and just for your members, meaning that this you can get to a lot of extra attacks with this. This would be 18 for your actual attacks and 30 direct damage attacks, adding up to 48. Yes, I can do math on the fly. But this does lose Binary Break. Everything else stays the same. For a second active, this is a stat booster that depends on dissolving attributive runestones in the first batch, so dare I say it's actually not that good. There are a ton of reasons why you wouldn't be able to dissolve some type of runestone in the first batch, which makes this much less effective than when you're first looking at this. Nonetheless, the skills are decent, so this is situationally useful if you can pull it off. Okay, I promise the seal related cards are finally over. Next, we have a new minigame event where you can build buildings and generate event currency. This currency can be exchanged for dragon wares and cosmetics, as well as another new character, the Fire Demon Shuna. Finally, we get to a card that doesn't need to be summarized. This card is short, simple, and great. This is the first Fire Demon to ever stat clear, and super damage reduction is always a useful skill to have. CD5 is also a very, very short cooldown. Next, we have a new Nightmare Fire Dragon card, Milim. This is quite a good card, being a single card that can break cross-shaped shield just by herself, due to the amount of attack that she can output, with the Tempestuous state being attack times 5, and the amount of extra attacks she outputs, and the other effects that come along with it are a nice bonus, such as creating protected runestones. She also has her own Dragonware, which is nice, but nothing that special. And for the last new collab character, we have the Light Beast Challenge card, stage card, Geld. This card also has super damage reduction and is the 4th ever card and the first beast to ever ignore multi-hit shield, and he might crack it himself. Times 10 is quite a strong attack boost. Lastly, we have a new Fire Elf Battle Pass card, Lady White Bone, which is the first ever Fire Elf card to reduce recovery to 0, but the conditions on this are a bit weird, so you need to pay attention to team building when using this, and not accidentally bring in a character of the wrong race that isn't also a fire member. For my ranking of the seal cards, this seal is decent in my opinion. The price of 175 diamonds for all the cards shown in here is pretty reasonable, although I may change my mind if a second round is needed with Rimuru's SR in the future, which will double the price. As always, it's a good idea to wait to pull anyway, because there will be 2 rate ups for the seal, the first starting on the 19th and the second being at the end of the collab period, so waiting until at least the 19th to pull is generally a good idea. The only outlier here is Benimaru, who I think is notably worse than a sub-jackpot usually is, especially in the leader department. If you're looking for a super OP leader, I don't think the seal is it. It doesn't have groundbreaking damage or anything like that. But if you're looking to boost your elf and demon box, these are a good collection of cards to do so, especially if you didn't pull for Hey Jaja like me and are looking for you know, an elf leader that isn't like 2 years old at least. From ranking of the free cards, all of the free cards this time have some pretty useful skills, so they are worth getting and leveling, especially Milim. Moving on to the celebration events, the returning ultimate card this time is the Dark Dragon Fallen, who is a pretty good Dark Dragon, especially for the Black Gold Novalis and Ursula, but even outside of that, a fixed board card is always great, so if you play Dragon teams, you should definitely farm him. That's it for this week's news review. That was quite a long one, so if you made it to the end, I really appreciate your time, and I would also really appreciate a like, comment, subscription, and comment down below if I should go and watch this slime isekai. It really helps the channel out, just all the engagement, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!